The germ of STH. The beginning of something. The germ of the idea came from observing natural processes. The globe. The world. Climate change affects the entire globe. The height of STH, countable and countable or singular noun. The strongest, most important or most successful part of something. The project reached the height of success when the results were published in a top journal. The idea of STH. The principle of something. The idea of gravity explains why objects fall towards Earth. The ins and outs. All details. She explained the ins and outs of the system. The jury is still out. People do not yet know the answer or have a definite opinion about something. The jury is still out on the effectiveness of the new vaccine. The last of STH. The only part of something that remains. The last of the original manuscript pages were archived carefully. The last is be heard saw of SB. The last time someone heard or saw a person. The last the research team heard of the missing specimen, it had been relocated to another lab. The length and breadth of STH. In every part of a place. Samples were collected from the length and breadth of the river. The length and breadth of STH. In every part of a place. The survey was conducted across the length and breadth of the rainforest. The merest. Used to emphasize something very small. The merest change in temperature affected the reaction. The minute, that. As soon as. The system activates the minute power fails. The moment, that. As soon as. The reaction begins the moment the catalyst is added. The naked eye. If something can be seen by the naked eye, it is big enough to be seen without special equipment. The colony of bacteria was visible to the naked eye. The naked eye. Unaided human vision. Bacteria cannot be seen with the naked eye. The next thing I knew. Used to talk about part of a story happening suddenly. The next thing I knew, the sample had completely reacted. The next thing I knew. Used to describe something sudden. The next thing I knew, the system shut down. The next thing I knew, phrase. Used to talk about part of a story that happens in a sudden and surprising way. The next thing I knew, the experiment had failed despite careful preparation. The odd. Occasional or infrequent. The odd error occurs in large datasets. The prosecution. Lawyers prosecuting someone. The prosecution argued that the evidence was sufficient for conviction. The ratings. A list showing how popular television or radio programs are. Television ratings show that the science documentary attracted a wide audience. The reverse, a noun. The opposite of what has been suggested. The experiment produced the reverse effect of what was initially hypothesized. The right. Political groups supporting capitalism. The right advocated for private funding of scientific research. The sound of STH, noun. How something seems to be, from what you have been told or heard. The sound of a new methodology being effective spread quickly through the lab. The spotlight. When someone gets public attention by being on television, in the newspapers, etc. The young researcher found herself in the spotlight after her innovative findings were published. The substance of STH, noun. The most important part of what someone has said or written. The substance of the professor's lecture focused on climate modeling. The tail end of STH. The last part of something. The researchers presented their findings at the tail end of the conference. The tail end of STH, noun. The last part of something. The researchers presented their findings during the tail end of the conference. The throne, noun. The position of being king or queen. He ascended the throne after his father's abdication. The top, noun. The most important position in a company, team, etc. He reached the top of the scientific advisory board. The turn of the century, a noun. The start of a new century. At the turn of the century, major advancements in physics reshaped scientific understanding. The upper limit. The maximum allowed level. The upper limit of safe radiation exposure is strictly regulated. The upper limit, noun. The highest amount or level, or the longest time that something is allowed. The upper limit of safe exposure to radiation was strictly enforced. The use of STH, noun. Permission to use something, or the ability to use something. The researchers were granted the use of advanced laboratory facilities. Then or there again. Used when adding a fact. The model appears robust, then again, it fails under extreme boundary conditions. Theoretical, ideas, adjective. Based on the ideas that relate to a subject, not the practical uses of that subject. She focused on the theoretical aspects of quantum mechanics. Theoretical, not proved, adjective. Based on ideas rather than practical experience. The theoretical model predicted outcomes that were later tested in the lab. Theoretically, adverb. In a way that obeys some rules but is not likely. Theoretically, the compound should react, but the experiment failed. Theory, principles, noun. The set of principles on which a subject is based. Darwin's theory of evolution explains species adaptation. There needs to be STH. Used to say something is necessary. There needs to be further testing before approval. Thereafter, adverb. After a particular amount, time, or event. The measurements were recorded thereafter every 10 minutes. Thesis, idea, noun. A theory that is suggested and can then be argued with or agreed with. The PhD student presented her thesis on renewable energy technologies. Thick and fast. Quickly and in large numbers. Emails from the journal editors arrived thick and fast after submission. Thick and fast, phrase. Quickly and in large numbers. Questions came thick and fast after the seminar on climate change. Think ahead, phrase. To think carefully about what might happen in the future, or to make plans for things you want to do in the future. It is important to think ahead when planning a multi-stage experiment. Think back, phrase. To think about things that happened in the past. When reviewing past trials, she thought back to earlier errors. Think highly, a lot of STH, phrase. To admire someone, or to believe that something is good quality. Scientists think highly of the new peer-reviewed study on climate change. Thinker, noun. Someone who considers important subjects or produces new ideas. Einstein was one of the greatest scientific thinkers of the 20th century. This and that, phrase. Different things which are not very important. During the conference, they discussed this and that regarding lab organization. This and that, phrase. Different things which are not very important. During the conference, the students discussed this and that about lab equipment. Thought, care, noun. When you do something that shows you care about someone. The lab assistant showed thought by labeling all the samples clearly. Thoughtful, quiet, adjective. Quiet because you are thinking about something. The researcher was thoughtful as he reviewed the experiment data. Thoughtfully, adverb. In a thoughtful way. She nodded thoughtfully after reading the scientific report. Thoughtless, adjective. Not considering how your actions and words might upset someone else. It was thoughtless to discard the samples without consulting the team. Thread, connection, noun. The connection between different events or different parts of a story or discussion. The thread linking the experiments was the hypothesis about enzyme activity. Thread, internet, noun. A group of pieces of writing on the internet in which people discuss one subject. The online forum thread discussed new techniques in genetic editing. Thread, material or noun. A long, thin piece of cotton, wool, etc. that is used for sewing. The microsurgical experiment required a fine thread for suturing. Thread a needle. To pass thread through a needle's hole. Automation can now thread a needle using robotics. Thread a needle, a verb. To push thread through the hole in a needle. The technician carefully threaded a needle to repair the small tissue sample. Thread your way through, between, etc., verb. To move carefully through a crowded place, changing direction in order to avoid people or things. He threaded his way through the crowded lab to reach the microscope. Thread your way through, between, etc., verb. To move carefully through a crowded place, changing direction in order to avoid people or things. He threaded his way through the crowded laboratory to reach the microscope. Threat, possibility, noun. The possibility that something bad will happen. The melting ice caps pose a threat to coastal communities. Threaten, happen, the verb. If something bad threatens to happen, it is likely to happen. A sudden chemical reaction threatened to contaminate the experiment. Threshold, level, a noun. The level at which something starts to happen. The threshold for detecting the virus was set at 0.01 nanograms per milliliter. Thrill, verb. To make someone feel excited and happy. The discovery of a new exoplanet thrilled the astronomy students. Thriving, adjective. Growing very well or becoming very healthy or successful. The coral reef was thriving after the conservation efforts. Throne, for king, queen, noun. The special chair used by a ruler, especially a king or queen. The ancient throne in the museum was carved from a single block of wood. Through thick and thin, idiom. If you support or stay with someone through thick and thin, you always support or stay with them in easy and difficult situations. The lab team supported each other through thick and thin during the intense project period. Throw caution to the wind, idiom. To take a risk. The scientist threw caution to the wind by testing the unproven hypothesis. Throw caution to the wind, idiom. To take a risk. The biologist threw caution to the wind and tried a novel technique. Throw in the towel, idiom. To stop trying to do something because you do not think you can succeed. After multiple failed experiments, he finally threw in the towel. Throw in the towel, idiom. To stop trying to do something because you do not think you can succeed. After repeated failed experiments, the researcher considered throwing in the towel. Throw SB in at the deep end. To make someone start a new and difficult job or activity without preparation. New interns were thrown in at the deep end during the laboratory experiments. Throw SB in at the deep end, idiom. To make someone start a new and difficult job or activity without helping them or preparing them for it. The new lab assistant was thrown in at the deep end with complex chemical titrations on her first. Throw SB in at the deep end, idiom. To make someone start a new and difficult job or activity without helping them or preparing them for it. The new intern was thrown in at the deep end on the first day of the lab project. Throw STH around, down, on, etc., a verb. To suddenly and quickly move your body or a part of your body. The demonstrator threw papers around the room to make a point. Tick, clock, verb. If a clock or watch ticks, it makes a sound every second. The antique clock in the lab ticks quietly every second. Tie, competition, game, verb. To have the same score as someone else at the end of a competition or game. The teams tied 3-3 after a thrilling match. Tie the knot. To get married. Two biologists tied the knot after collaborating for years. Tie the knot, idiom. To get married. The biologist and her partner tied the knot during the summer break. Ties, noun. Relationships that connect you with a place, person, etc. He maintained strong ties with his alma mater. Tight, straight, adjective. So that something is pulled to be straight or smooth. The rope was pulled tight to secure the scaffolding. Tight, straight, adjective. If cloth, wire, skin, etc. is tight, it has been pulled so that it is straight or smooth. The elastic band was tight around the test tube. Tighten your belt, idiom. To spend less money. Funding cuts force laboratories to tighten their belt. Tighten your belt, idiom. To try to spend less money. The research group had to tighten their belt due to budget cuts. Timber, piece of wood, noun. A long piece of wood used for building, especially houses and ships. The carpenter selected a timber for the lab's new shelving. Timber, wood for building, noun. Wood used for building or trees that are grown to provide this wood. The timber from local forests was used to construct the lab benches. Time, decide when, verb. To decide that something will happen at a particular time. The experiment was timed to start at exactly 9 a.m. Time after time, phrase. again and again on repeated occasions. Time after time, the students repeated the experiment to ensure accuracy. Timid, adjective. Shy and easily frightened. The timid mouse hesitated before entering the open field in the experiment. Tin, metal, noun. A silvery-colored metal, often combined with other metals or used to cover and protect other metals. The laboratory containers were coated with tin to prevent corrosion. Tip, fall, verb. To fall or to make something fall. The flask tipped over during the earthquake simulation. Tip, one side higher, verb. To move so that one side is higher than the other side, or to make something move in this way. He tipped the test tube to pour the solution gradually. Tip, untidy place, noun. A place that is dirty and untidy. The old lab was a tip, filled with scattered equipment and broken glassware. Tip SB off or tip off SB, verb. To warn someone secretly about something so that they can take action or prevent it happening. The whistleblower tipped off the authorities about unsafe lab practices. Tip STH into onto out of etc. STH, verb. To make the contents of a container fall out by holding the container in a position where this happens. The technician tipped the powder into the beaker carefully to avoid spill. Tire, become tired, verb. To become tired or to make someone become tired. She tired quickly after long hours at the microscope. Tire of STH, lesbi doing STH, verb. To become bored with someone or something, or to stop enjoying an activity. Researchers may tire of repetitive experiments but must continue for accuracy. Tiresome, adjective. Making you feel annoyed or bored. Repetitive data entry can be tiresome for laboratory assistants. Title, sports, noun. What you get if you win an important sports competition. The team won the championship title after months of preparation. To all intents and purposes. In all the most important ways. The prototype is to all intents and purposes fully functional. To all intents and purposes. In all the most important ways. The chemical reaction was, to all intents and purposes, complete after 30 minutes. To all intents and purposes, phrase. In all the most important ways. The solution was, to all intents and purposes, completely neutral. To death. Until you die. The experiment was monitored to death to ensure no anomalies were overlooked. To death, phrase. Until you die. The concept of biological immortality has fascinated scientists to death. To go. If there is a particular amount of time to go, that time remains. There are still 2 weeks to go before the final report is due. To go, phrase. If there is a particular amount of time to go, that time remains. There were still 10 minutes to go before the experiment ended. To say nothing of STH. Used to emphasize additional problems not mentioned. The device consumes excessive power, to say nothing of its high maintenance cost. To say nothing of STH, the verb. Used to emphasize other problems not talked about. The malfunction, to say nothing of the missing reagents, delayed the test. To SB's credit. Deserving praise. To her credit, she identified the anomaly before publication. To SB's disappointment, relief, surprise, etc., phrase. Used to say that someone feels disappointed, relieved, surprised, etc. by something. To the scientist's relief, the reaction worked as expected. To SB's satisfaction. As well as someone wants. The experiment was completed to the supervisor's satisfaction. To SB's satisfaction, phrase. As well as someone wants. The experiment was repeated to the researcher's satisfaction. To speak or think highly of SB or STH. To have or express a very good opinion of someone or something. The committee spoke highly of the intern's meticulous work. To the point. Expressing the most important things. The summary was brief and to the point. To the point, phrase. If something someone says or writes is to the point, it expresses the most important things without extra details. The report was concise and to the point, detailing only critical results. To still until the bitter end. Continuing something until finished despite difficulty. The team pursued the experiment to the bitter end despite repeated equipment failures. To still until the bitter end, idiom. If you do something until the bitter end, you continue it until it is finished, although it is difficult and takes a long time. The teen pursued the experiment to the bitter end, despite repeated failures. Toddler, noun. A child who has just learned to walk. Even toddlers can observe simple cause and effect experiments safely. Toe the line. To obey rules or authority. Researchers must toe the line when handling sensitive data. Together, in one place, adverb. In one place. The specimens were kept together in one place for easy observation. Tolerance, noun. Willingness to accept behavior and beliefs which are different from your own, although you might not agree with or approve of them. Scientific research requires tolerance for unexpected results. Tolerate, deal with, verb. To be able to deal with something unpleasant and not be harmed by it. Some bacteria tolerate high temperatures that would kill others. Toll, number, noun. The number of people who are killed or injured. The toll of laboratory accidents decreased with stricter safety measures. Tomorrow, future, noun. The future. The technologies developed today will shape tomorrow. Tone, mood, noun. The general mood or style of something. The tone of the research report was formal and precise. Top, most important, a verb. To be the most important, most successful, etc. The discovery topped all previous studies in the field. Top sth off or top off sth, the verb. To finish something in an enjoyable or successful way. They topped off the project with a successful presentation. Torrential, adjective. Torrential rain is very heavy rain. Torrential rain disrupted the field experiment. Torture, causing pain, noun. The act of causing someone great physical or mental pain, often in order to make them tell you something. The concept of chemical torture is studied in ethics courses. Torture, verb. To cause someone severe pain, often in order to make them tell you something. The Ethical Review Board prohibited any procedure that could torture animals. Toss and turn, verb. Be unable to sleep properly. He tossed and turned thinking about the failed experiment.